Welcome back to San Diego Market Movers. I'm your host, Jason Yoss. I'm here today with Woody Henderson. Woody, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Jason.
So Woody and I were talking off camera about earnest money deposits, and this is a very important thing for buyers in today's transactions. Woody, take me through a little bit about the earnest money deposit as it relates for buyers in a transaction.
Absolutely. When a buyer makes an offer, they'll typically offer up an earnest deposit, which is just a good faith gesture. So typically that's between 1 to 3% of the purchase price. 1% is typically acceptable, but if you're in a competition, a buyer may want to go up to 3% for the earnest deposit. And one of the things that people are concerned about when they make that deposit is there's a little bit of fear of, hey, will I lose my deposit, right? And so in a real estate purchase contract, we have contingencies, and a contingency is a condition that needs to be met prior to moving forward to the next stage of a transaction. And so when a buyer makes a deposit, they're protected by the contingencies that are in effect in the contract. Examples of contingencies are there's an appraisal contingency, a loan contingency, homeowners association review documents and disclosures. So buyers have a lot of protections and a number of contingencies that have to be satisfied in order for them to move forward and close the transaction. A buyer's deposit is only at risk if they remove all of their contingencies and then decide to cancel after that fact.
Will you clarify that? So for our audience, when you said only after they remove their contingencies, so it can't just be a time frame goes by. The buyer actually has to actively remove their contingencies. Is that correct?
Absolutely, and there's a document that supports it. And if a buyer wants to cancel, they will need to have a good reason. One of those contingencies they'll have to call into play, whether there's a problem with an inspection or an appraisal or whatever the issue was. And if they don't remove their contingencies, we would submit a cancellation and the escrow company returns the deposit to the buyer.
And this is one of the biggest fears you see with buyers when they're writing an offer or putting in, wanting to purchase a property, is the fear of losing their earnest money.
Yes, well, that's part of it, right? And they just don't understand. They think, oh, I'm putting my earnest money deposit in, it's gone, right? It's non-refundable, and that's not the case in most transactions.
Woody, I really appreciate you bringing some actual professionalism and light to our community about, hey, you're not just going to lose your earnest money. You do have protections there. That lets everybody know, hey, you can go ahead and work with a professional agent who can guide you through a transaction,
Absolutely.
who knows the ins and outs without having to risk it all. So Woody, thanks for being here today. Everyone else, thanks for tuning in to San Diego Market Movers. We'll see you next week.